Hey, it's time for Can
Tan!
We're talking about that time I got reincarnated as a slime, episodes 6 through 10. But first, you should be subscribed to our Subscribe Star so you can get all our bonus episodes.
So we're back. Our second batch of coverage of Slime Isekai, and we're past the kind of first establishing arc.
Yes.
We are seeing characters grow and evolve and change, and some fights that somewhat are straining Rimuru's abilities thus far. Not particularly much, but it's happening to a degree. And Rimuru himself is evolving as the party. Like, we're seeing the people who appear in the opening now are showing up on screen. So isn't that all exciting? So where are you at? What are you thinking?
So we have one little mini arc of the introduction of Shizu, the woman who Rimuru was destined to be with.
Indeed.
And not in the way that probably anybody would have expected. So I guess we'll talk about that arc first, because then we kind of just have the first two episodes of the Orc Lord arc, which introduce all the ogre characters. So yeah, the Shizu arc, we meet this girl. She's been flashed towards a few times. We know she's supposed to be some kind of hero or something, but turns out she's got a fucking demon inside of her.
She's got the demon in there. She was a summon by the Demon Lord like 50 years ago, and has been out killing and slaughtering. Well, not quite. She started off killing and slaughtering for the Demon Lord, and eventually transitioned after a fateful meeting with the hero, like the one Dragon Quest main character, who is a very similar but legally distinct woman, and then became an adventurer and developed some fame and fortune.
This arc intrigues me because, like, what actually happens in it is very straightforward and not that interesting. It's just like she shows up with these adventurers. Ifrit freaks out, tries to kill them all. Rimuru puts a stop to that by eating Ifrit out of her body. And then turns out, though...
If only more problems could be solved by eating out women. You know?
But, like, so basically seemingly what's implied here is that this isekai world is happening, like, in parallel with the real world at, like, the same time.
Yeah.
Because she transported there during the Yokohama firebombing.
Seems to be, yeah.
So, like...
During World War II.
Yeah, right as she's watching her mom and everybody she loves die, get consumed in flame, she suddenly appears in a Demon Lord's castle, half burned, all fucked up.
And rather indelicately, the Demon Lord says, "This one looks like it has an affinity for fire."
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, bro, give it some time.
So then he inserts the spirit of a Demon Lord into her body. And then right away, just by happenstance, some douchebag bird guy shows up and is like, "I'm gonna fight you, Demon Lord." And he's like, "Perfect." Ifrit, annihilate this guy. And he, like, mind controls her to destroy the guy. So, like, immediately we know this girl has, like, the most tragic, fucked backstory possible. Not only a victim of the actual World War II Yokohama firebombing, but also a mind slave to a Demon Lord. Forced to kill people she likes and things such as that.
Indeed.
But, like, what's fascinating to me is, like, that if this was a normal anime, normal isekai, and she was a normal waifu, that would have been it. That would have been her story, is, like, she came here, she was a Demon Lord slave, and now she's, like, trying to break free. But no, actually... the hero showed up and broke her free a long time ago. Or, like, the Demon Lord, like, ran off, left her at the castle to go fight some battle. She goes off to live with the hero for years, fights alongside her. Hero eventually tells her, like, "We'll see each other again, but I'm gone." So she disappears. Then she just continues living her life as a hero for, like, 40 fucking years.
Yeah, decades.
Becomes retires, becomes a teacher, teaches a bunch of kids who are also isekai'd. Like, basically lives this long, full life. You know, she is, like, a 90-year-old woman.
Something like that, yeah.
And the only reason, seemingly, that she was still alive is that she had the spirit of Ifrit inside of her. So once that leaves, it seems as though her body, like, rapidly ages and she just dies.
Yeah.
And then Rimuru inherits her will. And I think it was surprisingly powerful to me, that idea, especially because the first time I watched this, I wasn't really paying that much attention to the fact that she had like run a school and all this stuff. That will all be relevant later. We will go to that school. We'll meet those kids. So like the inherited will aspect is really what is driving Rimuru to some degree.
That school is a school for the summons, or for like the specific kids transported from Earth to here, which is highly relevant to our main character, and I'm very interested to see that. Yeah, that's kind of the most interesting hook. There's like an actual organization about, Jesus Christ, these Japanese kids keep falling out of the fucking sky. We got to put them somewhere.
So yeah, and it's a great idea for an isekai thing, and the fact that it's so like well foreshadowed and baked into the world building, that it's not just like something that just one day, oh, turns out there's this whole isekai. Well, we've heard about it from someone. We're being led into it, so it seems like rational and believable, and not something that's just gonna like pop in our face at some point.
It does make me wonder though what the distinction is. So Shizu was a summon. She was summoned by the Demon Lord to defend and fight with him and stuff. Those other kids, well, we don't know where Rimuru came from exactly. How did Rimuru get summoned? Unclear. And what all those kids, are they? Did like another Demon Lord summon them, or?
I guess we'll find out.
Because it's not, those clearly are not operating as like slaves the way that Shizu when she was summoned. So yeah, I guess there must be something else that we'll find out. I don't know.
Yeah, I think there's lots of different things that they can be used for, but as we know, it takes 30 mages 10 days to perform the summoning spell, so it's not something that like is always happening. But yeah, so
and interesting, they say that one of those kids has grown up and became a guild master. So we know those kids are out there having influence on the world. Yeah. Not just as like the one slaves, but like with their own will. Like one got a job and has stuff going on.
And I love the line where Shizu says that like because one of the students that she trained became a guild master, she's like, I don't think there's anything left for me to teach. I already did my job. Like I'm fulfilled as a teacher even, because like I've already like I basically trained like the most badass like leader that there is, so like what is there left for me to do other than get eaten? So she gets eaten by Rimuru, and now Rimuru has a fucking body. Sick.
A human body.
Human body.
And you know, it's interesting because on the one hand, like a cynical interpretation of this could be like, okay, all this backstory, even the fact that Shizu looks so much like the main hero girl, that like all of this was contrived just so Shizu could justifiably devour a human being and develop the ability to turn into a humanoid form.
So Rimuru could devour.
So Rimuru could, right. And I mean, true, that's why this was all in the story, practically speaking. But and it's funny, because the other thing is, like Rimuru now is like a sexy little androgynous body.
Yes.
That you know, the face looks like Shizu, but like the features it's gone into.
The ass looks like it belongs in your hand.
Sure. And you know, they can like take on, they can modify it to be whatever they want. They've just got like a basic human template now. But it's interesting that like we were talking about, there's some confusion as to like, okay, are there time dilations? Shizu looks very young, but she was from World War II, and like our guy is from modern times, so like is time shorter or longer? Why does she look so young? What exactly is the lore here? Right. And as soon as Shizu dies, because you know after Ifrit's gone, the last gasp is out of her body. Like she suddenly looks very old. Right. I was getting and it's in that old form that that Rimuru devours her. I think that like the whole point of her like being young, while it is confusing to us, her story is that of like an old woman, of like a very seasoned, like lived a full life, did all these things, and is like in a foreign land but made the best of it. Like it really should have been like an old lady, but if it wasn't an old lady, we wouldn't have this body now. Like imagine if Rimuru had like a gross old lady body. No one wants to look at that shit.
Well, I mean, he's not like, it's not as though he just has her body either, because he's like got a shorter, no tits, like fusion, blue hair obviously, and yellow eyes. So like he's like an odd fusion of her and something else, though no trace of his original body, as he points out.
Yeah,
like,
that's true.
And I thought it was interesting. So the scene where Shizu's dying, I got to get into like all the Japanese pride I felt watching these episodes. As a proud biracial,
Yeah.
half Japanese citizen of Japan. Because there's this great scene where when Shizu and Rimuru first meet and he finds out that she's from our world.
Because this is the first Japanese person he's run
Yeah.
into since leaving.
And
yeah.
he quickly discovers, like, oh, she's from the fucking 40s. So,
Right.
like, he uses his mind link ability that he has from the wolves to show her, like, memories of, like, textbook images of, like, Japan's evolution over time.
'Cause the last thing she would have seen is like, oh my god, the glorious empire is
Yeah.
being like overrun right now. No,
Yeah, and he
Emperor.
basically is like, hey, look, Japan turned out okay.
Although, notably,
Everything's cool.
everything's cool. Although it was funny to notice the point that at that moment, like America and the Western powers were like destroying the country she lived in.
Yeah.
And she specifically says like, wow, it's so amazing. Like our country has come to look just like New York. You know,
Yeah.
the country that was currently murdering us. So I mean, I don't know if I'd feel a little like cultural fear that like, oh God, we've been subverted by the West.
It looks just like Manhattan, you know, the project that...
Yeah. Before, like, I don't know how many skyscrapers existed in the 40s.
No, I
Some,
meant the
guess.
Manhattan Project is the...
Oh, you're right. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Anyway, that aside, I mean, yeah, it's cool to see like your country evolve and change with the time. So that was a nice moment. Tokyo Tower da.
Yeah, it was pretty adorable, and like then to have at the end when she's dying, she says like, "Can you tell me your real name?" And
right.
he's like, "Oh yeah," and he tells her his Japanese name. But as the conversation goes on, and she calls him that a few times, he like says, "I swear to you," as he says his real name, and he says, "No, as Rimuru Tempest," because like I think for her it's like she wants the comfort of speaking to like another Japanese person and like that you know we're sharing in that identity in this
Yeah.
moment. But like for Rimuru, he's Rimuru now. He
Yeah.
ain't that other guy. He's like, no, I'm the slime. I live here.
You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of Futurama and how at the very beginning, it's set up from the beginning that Fry, who goes 1,000 years into the future, like the real thing is Fry never belonged in the 2000s. He belonged in the 3000s. And whereas like Shizu states quite clearly, like I've always hated this world. Like I have some affection for it, but I felt out of place. You know, those Japanese, they don't really like outside countries too much, you know, especially back in the day. So she's always felt like out of place and sad, I guess. So to meet another Nihonjin.
The moment when she's dying and like it shows like her spirit, I guess, in heaven.
runs
and,
back
like,
to her mama.
Well,
in her little...
she's running towards the hero and her
yeah.
friend at first. She's like, "Don't leave me behind again," but then they disappear, and then her mom appears, and it's like, "Oh, this is what I really wanted to get back to."
I think it's fair to say for me that was like the emotional high point thus far in the story. To see someone, she just missed her mom, she missed her family. She came here as a child, a horrible burn victim summoned by the demon lord.
And her life was fucking awful
She
for
had
at
to
least
kill
the
her
first
friend
like
and
10
dog.
years. Yeah.
Yeah. She's a good little character, and I like the fact that her arc, like she really like is an old woman who lived a full life. It's closed and sweet, but Rimuru gets to like carry her spirit on.
It was also it was very effectively told to us because up until the point where she's dying, all we see is the bad parts of her backstory from when she was a kid. Like
Yeah.
we see her burned, summoned, do all this like horrible shit, and then after Ifrit's taken away and she's dying, that's when we learn, like, oh, actually, well, like, it wasn't a horrifying, tortured existence.
Yeah.
Actually, most of her life was good and she did lots of good things,
Mm-hmm.
even if it always was like you said, she really just wanted to go back home. Like, all of this was cope, you know?
We all have a deep longing for home buried in us, you know, and while we can fill our lives with lots of other things, like when you lose that thing originally, you know, I mean, when my parents recently sold the house that I grew up in, like I was like, oh, I'll never be able to go back there. Someone else lives there now. That point of origin has vanished. It makes you feel a little, what's the word? Adrift. But, you know, I mean, luckily you can still connect with the people, you know, and Shizu's able to connect with a person from Japan and see, the country's done well, and I miss my mom and stuff. So that was all very sweetly done.
Yeah, and now Rimuru's got a body, so
Yep.
that's sick. We learn all the specifics. No sex organs on this body, unfortunately. His boy did not make it, as he puts it.
not make it.
But there's an interesting scene where he's
This
like,
would have been a very different series if his boy had made it. Imagine
Very
what
different
Rimuru's
series.
life would have been like.
nothing
Yeah.
but he would never get anything done. I think
Yeah,
that's why
yeah.
they kept it off.
Because he only does this shit because he's like, I gotta do something to fill my day,
Yeah.
so I guess I'll do this. If he had a dick, it would be over. He'd be fucking all those goblinas.
Yeah.
Morning, noon, and night.
So he has a shadow clone jutsu now because of Ifrit. So he creates some shadow clones. One that's like, what would this body look like if it was like an adult body, but masculine? And he looks at it, he's like, oh, it's kind of a okay looking guy. And then he's a feminine version, but it looks too much like Shizu. And he's like, I don't want to be a sexy version of Shizu because that feels
disrespectful
or weird.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that he does not then just go back to like the other one.
Yeah.
He just was like, I guess I'll just be Rimuru. And he's fucking is adorable and a good guy. I like Rimuru a lot.
It's nice. It's just the pull of the default appearance in an RPG is a strong one.
I like the part where Ranga's like, you think I wouldn't know my master just because he looks different, you know?
Yes, that was nice.
Ranga, good dog.
He's a good boy. He's a good boy. I don't know how much more to say about like those batch of episodes.
Well, yeah, we got the ogres then.
Yeah.
So they get introduced, and it basically is like, this is the moment where the show kind of transforms, because it's like...
all our setup stuff, we now have the body and stuff from the OP.
I really think the first 5 episodes, like we said before, was like the author didn't know exactly what the story was going to be yet. Now he does. I think that's kind of why the characters kind of... I would bet that when he sent them off to Dwarf Kingdom, he probably didn't anticipate that everybody was going to come back to Goblin Village and it was just going to be like about the goblin, like building that up into something, you know? Because it really is like we go back and now we're there. And like the girl shows up, now Rimuru has a body, that's done. We've got all our establishment. So going into the next arc, immediately we are introduced to the orcs, this orc disaster that's coming through, the ogres who have now been run out by the orcs, of which we meet like 6 all at once that all join the team. This is our anime character fighting force.
They're all the ones in the OP.
Our sexy, badass shonen cast who is going to fight in battles now. They look like, you know, like Katakyo Hitman Reborn or something. Like just,
pretty much.
Vomited a bunch of characters into the show. And then also we have lizard people. So there's a whole clan of lizard people.
Do you know if the design is done by the Katsukyo Hitman Reborn guy?
I don't think so.
That's who it keeps reminding me of. I was trying to think of who they kind of remind me of. I think it's them, but I don't know, whatever.
But yeah, so like all these ogres show up, there's a big misunderstanding, and they all fight, and it's basically an excuse to demonstrate the full spread of what Rimuru can do right now.
Right.
To the point of like, showing it a move that he claims at least, like, this is my full power. Like, this is my most powerful attack. Big fireball, big lightning.
Shinigami
what do y'all
attack.
got? Can any of y'all do anything about this? The answer is no. So now all of them are fighting under Rimuru. And yeah, I mean, like, it really feels like these 2 episodes were just a way to just add a fighting team into the show. Just like, all right, there's going to be battles now. So here's a bunch of people who can fight, you know?
But you know, on that front, and I appreciate that, and of course he's doing the thing where he gives them all names, so they've really been added to the team. The most interesting mechanic that I've been liking so far is this giving names to people thing.
The evolution aspect of the show.
Yeah, the growth, the evolution stuff as the village is growing, as it's almost like when a non-NPC, when a PC like turns his gaze, you know, metaphorically, and gives things names and starts like focusing, how quickly that area develops and those people develop, as opposed to the random NPCs just out there doing their own thing in this generic world. And so to see like the Goblin Village just jump up in quality and hotness and the strength of the boys and stuff, and watching, like we saw, I really liked seeing Gobta was just, we get a little backstory. Remember how Rimuru was supposed to save him from his jail cell? He forgot. He swore a blood oath, and he fucking forgot about it like a piece of shit. But luckily, in that moment of desperation, Gobta discovered that he could summon his direwolf to save him. And now he's teaching that skill to the other goblins. So it's like, oh, cool. Like, all the goblins and this...
It's the best thing about this show, and what I would have to say is, like, the core theme, is the multiplying effect of the more people, like, help each other out, the more they can help each other out, you know? And, like, that... So they bring in these new people, and immediately the old guy is training everybody in sword skills now. So it's like, well, Gobta's now going to know how to use a sword.
Yeah,
you know, he might be incompetent and he'll probably suck, but he will know how to use it at least, you know. But
he'll get there.
And if he can do it, everybody else will do it 10 times better in the village. So like, yeah, every step of the way, this is something where the anime adds so much, because the actual like layout of the village, the building, the architecture, all of that. We see it in each stage of being built.
Yeah.
Where like there's scenes of Rimuru standing on a cliffside looking at just the plot of lands that have been drawn out, and it all looks right. It looks realistic and like like how many times have you ever seen in anime like a village in every stage of being built looking accurate?
And and on that front, I felt a deep sense of pain when Ifrit attacked, not because anyone died, but because all their hard work at building the village was razed to the ground. I was like, no, my boys and all the hard work they've done. And of course,
I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
That was on my mind the whole damn time. I was so fucked up about it.
But like we see the kinds of huts and stuff that you would usually see in JRPGs, like being built, like laying all the foundations, and like I'm just thinking about the effort that it would have taken to like get, architecture people in on the show to make this actually look real, to like lay out a town in a way that, it in the novel, I'm sure it's just him saying like, and the town has gotten better, like
yeah, probably.
the buildings are more sturdy and superior, and it's like actually seeing it whole different. It would take pages of detail to actually describe what we can just see in these these houses looking meticulously crafted. That's why animation is so great.
Yeah, true. And when we see the dwarves come back and join the team and stuff, we learn about like each of their specializations. There's the main guy who's the blacksmith. There's the one who does like the fine detail work. There's the guy who makes armor, and we see him make it. And then as these characters, and then the guy who like builds houses. As these characters appear, now all the goblins now have clothes because the armorer guy is here, and it's like made of direwolf fur, which they have like a relationship with the direwolves. So you're seeing like, oh, I see where all these elements and tools are coming from, how it's being built up. And like the one guy who builds the houses, we see him in the back, or we see the house is half built, and like just by looking at a picture of the house half built, I'm like, oh, I see how this house is built. They like weave these bands together in this particular way to form the outer wall and build the top out of like sticks and straw or whatever. It's like, oh, okay, I see like the level of technology they're at, and this seems practical, and like I could probably replicate this if I had the materials to do so. So yeah, those details were pretty cool, and that's my favorite thing watching it go forward, seeing these things being added and multiplied and being built up. And now that like the ogres are here, it's like, oh, okay, now we're gonna have access to like ogre tech and ogre abilities and stuff. That'll be pretty cool to see.
Yeah, and we've got two cute girls and sexy boys running around now. Yep. Shadow guy with the cool voice, the red-haired dude is like leader boy.
Yeah.
Like, it's interesting to see how the characters are kind of being like slotted into their roles, not even so much in terms of like what can they do in the world, but like who will they be in the show. Like red-haired guy is obviously going to be like guy who Rimuru can now talk to about like leadership decisions and tactics and stuff. Shadowy guy is the ninja.
He's the ninja.
Just instantly the ninja. Like, okay, we get it. Like, so all the characters are very like archetypical. It's just the chemistry between how everybody works. The fact that like when Rimuru gets new allies, he immediately finds a purpose for them. It's just like, all right, you're gonna do this, you're gonna do this, and everybody feels like they're accomplishing something, so they love working for him.
Rimuru feels like how I feel when I'm playing like an RPG and I'm managing the resources like in the village, which is obviously the feel they're going for on purpose. So it feels familiar, and I like it. And Rimuru is, of course, in that way, like a gamer such as myself, an epic gamer, highly relatable. So it's pretty cool. Whenever I play a game, I want to min-max my resources. I want to push my combinations of things to as far as they can go, exploit whatever abilities are available to me at any time, and try neat combinations and stuff. So as you said, like he's way overpowered, generally speaking, against any individual threat so far. Even with Ifrit, like the one time he's like, oh no, I fucked up. Ifrit caught me in this trap. How could I have been so foolish? Oh wait, I'm literally immune to fire, so okay. But perhaps a threat will come later. But I don't even really feel that anxious about it, because I'm just enjoying watching the village being built and watching these new characters show up. And I'm interested to see the new threat on the horizon appears to be these Majin, these these agents of the Demon Lord or whatever, including the guy.
Majin
Yeah.
are probably like the the only thing that's been introduced so far that is like competes with Rimuru's power levels. So like
Yeah,
they
yeah.
are like what we're meant to see him as like being about on the same level as something that could cause a calamity threat.
And this is what I was saying. The plot element I like, that's the most interesting, is this idea of giving names to things. And while Rimuru, like I was saying, has been going around and giving the goblins names, the
You just
what is
reminded
it?
me of the
Yeah.
line that the red-haired ogre says to him, which is like that the other dude, not Rigurd, that's the
Gelmood.
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 So Gelmood is just going around giving seemingly random monsters names for some kind of nefarious purpose. But red-haired guy would not take a name from him because he's like, I wouldn't just take a name from anyone. And Slime blushes. He's like, wow, that's so.
How
I must be
kawaii.
really. I must be fucking something then.
But and that's what I like. I see what they're doing with that element. Just like that's what I mean by like there's NPCs who are bullshit, and then there's the main player characters like Rimuru. Wherever he goes and gives things names, they're evolving and changing, getting strong really fast. In the same way is what we're seeing this Gelmood guy doing behind the scenes, because this whole ogre arc starts with he's just in the desert, finds an orc who's about to die, and he does exactly this. He's like, do you want to live? I'll give you food and a name. And that's where
and he
this
also
whole,
tells him, you are
yeah.
going to take over the forest of whatever, which
Right.
is where everybody lives.
Right, so obviously the two forces are going to clash, and these are clear. This is clearly the Orc Lord who has who wiped out the ogre's village, and is the impetus for why the ogres are here and doing all this stuff. So seeing like this power of naming, and really it's like the two powers of growth being pushed up against each other and clashing. I just think it's a pretty cool mechanic, and I want to see where it goes.
And it's important to note, as I did last time, I think, that it's not just that the name makes you evolve; it unlocks the ability to evolve.
Yes,
because
right.
our orc goblin lord became Goblin King just off screen. Like
Right,
Rimuru
right.
shows up, and because of the fact that they had, I guess they added a bunch of other goblin villages to theirs, and so all of the other goblin elders appointed him like supreme goblin elder, and this unlocked for him title Goblin King, which
Right.
makes him even stronger. So it's like, whatever you do in the world that like raises your social rank will literally transform your body into something like more powerful, it seems. So that's interesting as well.
It's like turning the social power you have into like an in-game mechanic or something. But yeah, it's pretty cool. So I don't know how much more they can go other than just continuing with this power set, but I've certainly been liking it so far. And I appreciated that the ogres are said to be way stronger than goblins. So when naming only 6 of the ogres and turning them into kaijin or whatever they are, like Rimuru passed out from just that. So it's like, okay, he couldn't go to like the legendary dragon and just give him a name and like evolve him like so easily or anything.
I think it's noteworthy that like Veldora Tempest like wanted to name Rimuru and receive a name in return, but Rimuru tells him the last name Tempest.
Right.
Veldora names himself Veldora Tempest. He had the power to add on to his own name, and I'm wondering if that made him more powerful.
I'm wondering about that too.
Because like if Rimuru had to name him, assumably he wouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah, yeah.
So like, but he says like, oh okay, I am now Veldora Tempest. So
It makes me wonder if this family name sharing thing like is a mechanic where, because as opposed to Veldora just naming him, yes, he gave him a name, but they also adopted the same family name. Right. Did this magically link them in a way beyond just
that would be
Predator?
super interesting.
Yeah, so I don't know, but it's pretty neato.
And if so, then Rongo would also be on the link because he's Ronga Tempest.
That's right. That's true. That's true. There's a deeper connection there. Well, I mean, that's where we've left it right now. Things are interesting. I like the mechanics, and I'm interested to see. Like, I'm glad this arc is about like. An orc who has been evolved via this like naming power thing, specifically used by this guy Gelmood or whatever, up against our forces who are doing the same thing. I'm interested to see that clash, and I don't want to hear those two guys like talk. What's going on? What's the end game here? Where are they getting to? But it's more than holding my attention, so I'm interested.
I'm also interested just by the fact that like up until this point, Rimuru like basically showed up in this world. The goblins asked for help, and so he's like, okay, I'll help you to build your village up, and that's really all he's been doing and all he was motivated to do is just build this village. Now that he has inherited the will of Shizu. He has other missions in mind. He wants to go punch the Demon Lord because of the fact that he, made her cry, and
meet those kids at that school. And I really want to see that.
So now we have more. We have more mission, and like Rimuru's life is a little bit more complicated for reasons other than just the fact that he's going to get attacked by orcs and shit.
And I guess he has a general goal that I think Shizu gave him of see if you can send those kids home.
Yes,
which is like
he
a
also
real
is going
goal.
to try to, and like that is I think what his goal is with the kids is like try to figure this shit out. And
it makes me wonder, will he want to go with them? Is that even possible? I'm thinking probably not because life's pretty sick over here.
Yeah, I mean,
but I don't know.
He's like he has even more responsibilities than he did at home, but way more payoff.
Right,
for
and
those
more power to
responsibilities.
make it happen, which is very gratifying. So keep going, Rimuru. I'm down to see some sick anime fights and stuff. Do more magic stuff. It's been a good ride. Yeah, I don't know. I'm probably at like a strong 7 to like a light 8. I just want to see where things go. Yeah, it's been fun.
That's about what I'd give the show overall, probably a strong 7. That's it for this episode of The Slime. If you want to say Cantant while you're doing something crazy at the end of one of our videos, send us a clip either on Twitter or through the Cantant Discord linked below. Don't forget to become a subscribe star. Give us $10 to get our bonus episodes. And anything else?
Hey, one thing that we're thinking of doing is talking about the Chainsaw Man manga.
Oh yes, so if you've read Chainsaw Man, there's like 95 chapters of it. We don't want to do it all in one video. So let us know, where should we break it off? If we want to do 2 videos on Chainsaw Man, what like arc or number, chapter number, without spoiling anything, tell us where we should break it off that would be satisfying to do as 2 different videos.
Yeah, let us know what you think. And just tell us if you're excited about that idea as well. All right, there you go, everybody. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to go to the subscribe star, and we'll see you next time. Is this someone else? Let's find out right now. Cantant! Cantant!